Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've just heard a wonderful suggestion. Barack Obama is going to be the second worst president since the war. The only thing I think that might make you, or many of you at least, not agree that George Bush is the worst American president in 50 years is to hear somebody say it in a British accent. I'm acutely aware of the sensitivity of international comment. I'm a deep skeptic about my own government. I will not say much good of Gordon Brown, and I won't say a lot of good about a hereditary monarchy. But if I hear someone with an American accent insult my queen, I'll hit them. There is something about foreign accents on these subjects that gets people's backs up, so I beg your pardon. The point I want to make is this, that there are really two American presidents. There's a president of the United States of America, and that is entirely your business. But there's a second American president, and he is the president of the Western Alliance, and in many senses, since the end of the Cold War, is seen as a sort of president of the rest of the world. I've just been in Syria and Lebanon. A lady speaking at a meeting made a rather moving remark. She said, every single one of us around the world went to the polls on November the 4th, but only some of us were let in. The vast majority, disenfranchised, sat outside, while America decided on their economy, on their diplomacy, on their politics, in many cases on their lives. And it's to that American president that I want to say a few words tonight. I've spent almost all my life cheerleading for America. I'm second to nobody in this noble cause. And I can tell you it's not been easy this past 8 years. But until the last 8 years, I have always felt that each American president, in some small sense, pushed uphill the great boulder of democratic freedom. Every single one, I felt at the end of it, yep, America's done it again. We've made a bit of progress. And I felt that was one of the great strengths of America, that it could push that boulder a bit uphill. It may have been a military intervention, it may have been a trade agreement, it may have been a signal example. Whatever it was, somehow or other, there was a progress forward with what I call the Great American Crusade. When George Bush came to power, I was rather in favor of him. I rather admired the program he put forward for his foreign policy. Condoleezza Rice's famous article on a humble foreign policy definitely appealed to me. I liked the remark about America setting the world an example by what it did at home rather than by getting the 82nd Airborne to lead kids to school. This seemed to me to be a refreshing, unbombastic, unostentatious diplomacy. Then came 9/11. And I've always remembered those few weeks after 9/11 when the whole world was pro-American. Yasser Arafat gave blood for New Yorkers. Many people forget that. Almost nobody was not on America's side for those 2 or 3 weeks. And the disaster that followed, going to war in crude retaliation for it, as something from which I don't think American policy abroad has ever recovered. I've recently been touring around that arc of instability, and the consequences of 9/11 really have been catastrophic. To pretend that Iraq is a success is obscene. Iraq today is more or less back to what it was like in 2004. And if Karl or Bill want to walk hand in hand with me down Haifa Street in Baghdad, as you could still in 2004, well, I can tell you they won't. Afghanistan is heading in exactly the same direction. I think Afghanistan is going to be a far worse mistake than Iraq. But in every single theatre that you look, with the possible exception of Japan, which has been eccentrically mentioned, you will see what I can only describe as the wrong decisions taken. Iran should not be a foe of America at the moment. It should be much more like Egypt, and it could have been. There's no reason for undermining the Pakistan government to the extent that it's been undermined by American military intervention there. Russia, a putative friend 8 years ago, is now a serious menace. Wherever you look, you see what I call the crashes down the road of neoconservatism, littering the highway of world affairs. This was unnecessary. It was not required by circumstance. It was choice. It was decisions made in Washington. Now, those of us who feel very strongly about America always regarded the basis on which America operated out of its area, America went abroad to do things, was that it had a sort of moral superiority. There was behind what it did a backbone. And that backbone was the backbone on which those people who approve of American intervention abroad always relied on. I'm afraid under the leadership of the last 8 years, that backbone has snapped. It has been simply impossible to tell countries elsewhere in the world that the American example, that the American intention, that the American execution of its intervention has been for the best. People just don't see it that way. If you go around many of these countries today, and I mean today, you see the most extraordinary faith put in the next American president.
Simon, could you repeat that line? We want to not edit the bell.
If you go around the world today, you will find the most extraordinary faith in the person you've elected as your next president. I have never come across anything like it. A totally naive belief that this is the Messiah, Barack Obama, has come to save not you, but everybody. He will solve the Middle East. He will get out of Iraq. He'll get out of Afghanistan. He'll pacify Pakistan. He'll make friends with Iran. Ludicrous expectations are placed on the shoulders of this man. The reason why that's happened is because people simply have despaired of the last 8 years. The reason why I think unrealistic but possibly disastrous expectations are made of Barack Obama is that George Bush, for better or for worse, George Bush has caused such a catastrophe in so many countries around the world. I congratulate you on voting for Obama. I hope you will vote for this motion. Thank you.